Once, there used to be a goddess statue here.
A goddess?
A goddess that exists in the world.
It started with siblings, and the programs of a damaged system. But now chaos consumes the lands, all for a sentience seeking understanding. But without 8 guides to give it knowledge, it has become twisted by megalomania, rage, despair, and the regret of a man trying to rescue his only family from the fate of the lost. Haseo's greatest trials still await, but beyond them, the truth he has long sought. For in the moment of the darkest twilight, first the cursed wave, having consumed its brethren, shall pierce the veil and lead the goddess's children against the enemy of all. He shall ascend and leave his mark etched into its epitaph. For this is the day the terror of death saves the world.
And it's finally time for the end, Dadahakuyu Redemption, or as it was originally titled, Oroku yo na Hayasade, which translates as, at a walking pace. Yeah, the ironic thing is, the changed name more befits the themes of this volume, even though it was done that way to follow the R-consonant synergism between the mainline GU content, Roots, Rebirth, Reminisce, Redemption, and Returner. This is an example of why I tolerate localization only with professional companies.
The game was released in January of 2007 in Japan and September 2007 in the US, 4 months respectively from the last entry.
And it's admittedly the weakest part of the trilogy. It's not really bad, but the gameplay begins to wear on you at this point. And with starting over with all of the side quests, if you're marathoning the 3, you'll start to get burned out with it here. Not helped with how emotionally exhausting Reminisce ends up being, so you're less inclined to keep going when you start with this one.
It's also where the divergences from the original intentions of the series are the most profound. It's still a better change in my opinion, as it hits the same emotional impact, but for slightly differing reasons. The pacing seems a bit skewed though, like there's less overall there, and there seems, well, less thought put into some of its events.
And you're probably wondering why we should even care. Ovan's the villain! Short game. Find him again, stop him again, delete the Ida. It doesn't matter his reasons why, he's the bad guy, right? Right? Well, the game immediately explains, and I'd like to introduce you all to someone.
This is Aina Indo, Ovan's sister. She is a lost one. She is the first lost one rendered comatose by Ida. And she was killed by Trilogy when it infected her brother.
Ovan?
And this is the reason. This is why, despite everything Ovan has done, and will still yet do in this volume, I can't view him as the villain. 'Cause he's a victim in all of this as well. And everything has been so she will wake up, both here and in the real world.
You might say he used Sakaki, and all of Sakaki's sins are his as well. He was giving the brat Ida, after all, to use in his schemes. Well, not so much. While he's ultimately responsible for it, Sakaki's a power-hungry douchebag, manipulating others emotionally and making them reliant on himself. There's always that inevitable selfishness and callousness in everything he does, taking any opportunity presented to him. What he was doing to Atoli in specific and Moontree in general in subverting them into his playthings predated his use of Ida.
And that's something Ovan has never done. nor had consistent with his actions. So he is not accountable. He has never really victimized anyone. Remember when I pointed out Ovan's message at the beginning of Rebirth as important? It informs so much, and is consistent with his actions. That was him giving Haseo an out. A chance to avoid everything that has happened since, because he knew what would be needed. He knew what he would end up demanding of Ryo Masaki before all of this would end.
He tells half-truths, omits information, and can be rather indifferent to his associates to the point they break ties with him, but it's inevitably all working towards that which he can't stop himself from seeking, no matter the costs.
Because there's only one route out of this, and he knows it. He tried to find others. None of them worked. But to get this last solution, he needs one thing and one thing only. And until he can get it, he has to play his part in creating it. And unfortunately, that part is of the magnificent, manipulative bastard.
Yeah, it's selfish to focus on saving his sister alone, but his solution will result in Ida's purge and everyone harmed from Ida waking up. And it's because of what he's put into motion that many can be saved. Essentially, he can be seen as a mirror of Haseo and how he develops with respect to the theme of responsibility, only more mature and knowing what he has to do from the outset, willing to give of himself to see it through. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and to end this, he is going to damn himself. The thing is, it's his fault, and not just the triage thing. Aina in real life is an ill girl, separated from Misato so she couldn't get treatment, their sole connection being through playing in the world. So how much worse would you feel for not just for being responsible for your siblings' current state, but putting them in the situation where they were harmed in the first place? When all you want is them to be there with you, constantly reminded of that as you lose control and cause others harm?
You know, I may have given the Legend of Twilight anime crap, but its element of separated siblings staying connected and close through a game, though diverging greatly from its manga source material, was one of the good things about it. We could have done without the ancestral overtones, but overall it did work.
In addition, Aina was a friend of Philo's, and was responsible for introducing him to Ovan. Some of his protectiveness and consultation towards Haseo was influenced by his interactions with her, Yada at one point accusing him of filling that gap, a recurring theme if you've not noticed.
And once again, this is something Roots could have touched on or foreshadowed, but did not. Pretty much everything Roots would have had a connection to, bar 2 incidents, is now over. And it played little to no part in informing them. Hell, almost everything I've expanded on using Roots clips, I could have subbed in other content. I really don't mean to keep going back to this, but the blunder in all of this really is in Roots' execution, especially the parts focusing on fucking Tabby, when its entire runtime could and should have been used as part of a more competent presentation.
I keep looking to Dot Hack's sign, no duh, it's the beginning of the franchise, and how it told a complete story all on its own, but left open the window into the next part's events while showcasing the setting and its mysteries. Where Roots is all windows, but you don't get the time to look through them as you're being dragged along haphazardly by an annoying cat girl to see what's there, and what is showcased is things that are either entirely irrelevant or not important to the next part of the story.
We don't even get a real foreshadowing of Aina before this, and that's rather surprising since Aina was part of the original draft Roots was meant to work and coincide with, but is completely left out of Rebirth and Reminisce.
It kinda makes sense for the preceding games and why they could not fit it in. Rebirth is about Haseo, re-establishing the setting and introducing the main cast properly. Reminisce is about Atoli, seeing the true scale and danger of Ida and its effects on people. But as I've repeatedly said, Roots was supposed to set up all the things the main games left as backstory, and failed utterly. While pivotal events take place in the narrative that matter in the long run, their actual relevance to the story is meaningless because there's no real bonding between the characters shown to justify the emotion the games have made a big damn deal out of in that backstory. And each of those pivotal moments we could have been shown are shanghaied to focus on things that do not matter in the slightest. As shown, Philo was an ancillary supporting character for Roots, but he mattered more than Tabby ever will with one single act. Even though the trilogy is more about Haseo's journey and everyone else but Shino, her bond with Haseo, her loss, and his wish to get her out of her coma begins, informs, motivates, and concludes such. But it takes until the middle of the second game before we get a scene giving insight on how truly significant that bond was, because Root screwed up on showcasing it. And here, Ovan's entire character and motivations are more informed in the first damn minutes of the final entry than it was in Root's at all, even though all you really needed when he was around and relevant was 10 to 20 seconds with Aina's empty player character every so often. Hell, even once, and him saying something mysterious, to see he's working towards a greater goal, a purpose to his machinations that is now only given. Ovan and Philo had a few scenes together, even making reference to Aina and her condition once would have justified it, the man being worried over a friend he lost, and a mutual wish by them both she would return.
This is why I hate Roots, and think it's ultimately one of the worst prequel series out there. Because I love GU. This entire project has made me more aware and appreciative than ever about its content. The levels everything mashes together. I've seen new angles on characters I didn't grasp for years after my initial playthroughs. Hell, that whole Sakubo thing, I didn't realize the whole impact of that until I started deconstructing it. I knew about Entrance and Kun, but hadn't fully conceptualized their points of view before this, and it makes everything that much a greater an experience for me now.
As I have said, Dot Hack is a series that is made more rich and beautiful the more you know about it, even though you can exclude the knowledge of the rest and enjoy a single entry in it as a standalone entity. The more times you expose yourself to, in order to see the greater picture to the mainline events of both the core games and GU, that, while ultimately unnecessary to understand and appreciate in an individual chunk, just adds more life to it. Adds on to what was already there.
It got to the point I rewrote half of the Reminisce review just as I was about to start editing its videos. Because what I originally intended, I realized didn't even have a chance of properly conveying the themes of the content if I went through with it. You can kind of see the stitching and overemphasis at points. It meant that much to me to get it right. Part 5's spiel on Atoli's character went through over a dozen revisions in and of itself, and I still feel I didn't properly emphasize or bring into focus all the correct elements of it, especially with current propaganda insisting on the over-criticism and over-analysis of female characters. How much I treasure this trilogy has only grown, not weakened by reviewing it. But then I look at what immediately precedes all that, and I don't see any of that care, time, or effort. It is the weak link in the chain that could have been hacked down to 6 episodes, if that. Effectively, an OVA series like the Terminal Disc or Liminality, they could have shipped with each entry to build the backstory, and not have done the damage it likely did in making people uninterested in playing this series.
But that's enough rambling from me. Let's get back to the main story. I like to think at least a week, if not more, has passed since the end of Reminisce. Time for both Haseo and Atoli to recover from what they went through last time. Though we already saw a bit of Atoli rebuilding her self-esteem on her own by standing defiantly against the man that was once her confidant.
It's just my take on it, as I know it takes time for people to recover from heavy emotional blows.
It's good to note, however, that after something like that, Haseo's not backslidden in a cycle of grief, shown immediately in the story by Haseo returning to Sith Berg and musing over everything he's learned, and deciding what he's going to do. While in Raven, Yada wonders why Ovan didn't just plainly ask for help.
Well, we know that reason quite clearly.
I'll continue examining Ovan.
Now, remember, last time I said that's not how things were supposed to go down. This is more proof of why that is. Yada is not that stupid, and framing it as it was done totally betrays an actual long-standing acquaintance and friendship that, while playing into his obsession, is not consistent with the character of Takumi Hino.
He muses on how dangerous the whole emotional manipulation thing can be, evidenced by the recent occurrences from Sakaki and Moontree, going to find out if Ida's managed to escape the system yet.
PC Yada. Your access to the Serpent of the Lord has just been terminated.
Crap.
Ah, CC Corp, you shot yourselves in the foot once again. They likely had a grasp on the full situation now. But nope, you step in. I have never lied when I said CC Corp is the true villains of the .hack series.
We're sent to Haseo's desktop, and the version updates are thus. The Doppelganger items are now in play, able to unlock special items from further defeats of it. The latest Emperor Crown has given a new odd home for Canard we will be seeing in a bit. And someone's hacked Haseo's player character, overwriting Divine Awakening.
While I did not particularly care for Divine Awakening, because they charge by button mashing, mainly because I really suck at it, it's still better than the new Awakening we get in Redemption.
Because system bugs have begun to more properly propagate from IDUP screwing up the game. Avatar Awakening is essentially allowing Haseo to cast Data Drain Arc in battle, netting us virus cores. You can, at most, get about 4 per battle.
Meaning, yes, you have to spam the Awakenings in every battle to even get close to the number of resources you require.
And by that, I mean the virus cores are used to perfect the lost weapons, which, had you not gathered them from Kalian Meep before, are now all placed in the possession of their related epitaph users. Raising them up requires a huge number of virus cores, which I inevitably get for everyone, but a streamlined player should focus on ranking up the Tickling Death into the Shadowy Death, the most powerful Scythe, Atoli's Dancing Haze into Flame Dancer, and Kuhn's Silent Jade into Silent Eden. However, after you evolve all 7 weapons, the mysterious ally that's done this...
Spoilers, it's Zelkova. I'll discuss this more later.
Allows you to trade in any spare virus cores you gather in exchange for stat enhancement items.
If that doesn't seem so bad, well, Drain Arc is not complete. It's another ability that only levels up from using it constantly, and for a fair chunk of the game, it does less comparable damage than even lower-tier Divine Awakenings after adjusted for stat and level increases. It levels up even slower than the class skill trigger abilities do, to the point in the 3 times I've completed this game, I've never gotten it past level 7 even after completing and maxing out everything, and I do mean everything else capable of being maxed out in the game.
Speaking of the skill trigger, the new skill trigger attacks for this game are weak. Pretty much everyone but the magic classes are gypped, as aside from them, there is only 1 skill learnable.
These attacks are known as level 3 arts, meant to be upgradable over time, using less SP, and doing more damage as it goes up. But if you compare the data, until you reach skill level 29 in the class, it's more efficient to use the last set of attacks learnable in Reminisce. Before that, the other skills do more damage and cost fewer SP. And with how long it has taken to level up the job skills in the past 2 games, unless you know a few tricks, you'll be in the pros game before you reach that.
These levels, however, are where the magic classes shine. Elite especially learning a whole host of super effective healing and buffing magic, which render her even more invaluable than before. Fortunately, CyberConnect finally became aware that, because they keep blocking out the fucking arena from free play, there's no good way to advance job skill levels. So put in a piece of item customization equipment that doubles the experience that goes towards that. But it's hard to get duplicates of it, so your teammates still luck out until you're done with it.
My advice is to give it to Atoli first. You can trade with party members to get back what you give them, so it's not like you'd lose access to it, as her spells remain the team's most critical asset.
Especially as it is this game where I regularly fight in areas 5 levels above my current character levels to really feel a challenge due to Haseo's status as Death Incarnate carrying over from Reminisce, and continuing to advance. By doing such, I can use skill trigger multiple times a battle, and get enough of a morale charge from such that in the next fight I can unleash Avatar Awakening without care, effectively making the most efficient utilization of time for attaining all of the various level ups.
But that ends up screwing over the pacing of the game. By doing that, I end up like 10 levels above story events about 2 hours into the game, and that gap increases over time, meaning I'm hit with a flag for the next story event, one after the other, so either get locked out of side quests, well, it would if they really existed in between those flags. CyberConnect has realized what had happened with that Pieros and Gaspard quest from Rebirth and remember not to do it again, Or the game loses a feeling that this is as epic and dramatic as the story is trying to convey, because you kill your storyline opponents with effectively a backhanded slap. Now in some respects that is greatly amusing, and you will understand why in a bit.
Crimson Versus has also been reset, the card game now allowing for the utilization of Delta combos, sets of cards placed along a central thematic that, when combined, creates a special power that overwhelms opposing strategies.
There are a bunch of them, but if you manage to collect all of the cards last game, you will have a few to start you off early. And if you're wondering, the deck that beat Gaspard for the second and final game was Haseo at Dawn, Come Back Alive, Healing Waves, and Don't Kick. Have at.
Amongst the startup emails is Atoli, once more depressed over the continuing aftermath from Moontree, as the entire event has effectively disbanded the guild, as was foreshadowed by Matsu last game. Haseo being worried she may be backsliding into her cycle of blame, amongst her other many cycles.
Atoli, are you alone worrying again? Don't get lost in your own difficulties. Your problems are also mine. Or rather, all of our problems.
It's a good sign, however, that she's not letting this fester within, choosing to vent to Haseo because, well, right now he's the only person she really trusts.
But if you look at the news capture, well, CC Corp showing how much they're idiots again by preventing the guy thinking Ida's gone past the system from confirming such, and we are shown it has. The satellite we've been getting details over in past articles threatening to perform a colony drop, automated cars pulling a Suntaran stratagem and trying to kill people, and foreshadowing an arena event that's appearing soon, the director of the events giving us some disconcerting lines on the subject. Anyways, now's the time to head to the last official city of the world R2, the Steam Tech City Breg Epona.
And while not as iconic as Makanu, it's pretty cool, but only focuses on a main street thematic for the explorable section programmed into the game, which is far more efficient than the other root towns with respect to both the NPC and guild shops that are nicely placed along it.
The street runs from the main Chaos Gate all the way back to the advanced at-home, the best one available to general guilds without getting their own private area. And it actually gives off a vibe of being extravagant. Death Grunty is of course ecstatic he's got the best digs now, but he informs us Mellow Grunty, formerly attached to Moontree, has gone missing.
Oh, poor thing. He must be so sad to have lost his home.
Poor thing. He's just an NPC.
And this is a game that regularly spawns fully sentient and vagrant AI. It wouldn't surprise me if events all the time showed up from a combination of selectively chosen random events and real player interaction.
I say that because it's actually in character for Mellow, who often in past interaction came across as more of a mellow and self-assured Atoli. Speaking of...
Haseo?
Atoli, where'd you come from?
What? I've been here the whole time, haven't I?
Don't stand in my blind spot, okay?
This is both a callback to when Haseo became the Guildmaster of Canard, and a subtle tell, both explained later.
So yeah, with her prior words on wanting to see Mellow again, you can tell she's on board for finding the wayward Grunty.
And there's no way he can resist the eyes.
You know you can't resist the face.
So it's off to Sigma Universal's Ocean's Glide, where the other Grunties we've met are out in force to try and locate Mellow. However, the relevance for all this is more than an NPC guild mascot / manager appearing to feel sad. This is closure for Atoli on the whole mess, the last piece she needed to get over it and continue on moving forward as a person. Mellow is acting like she was in the initial aftermath of being freed from Ida, blaming everything that happened there on herself. The Grunties in the area speaking words that paralleled the sentiments that helped free Atoli from her spiral of self-loathing. So the last part in that becomes being able to look at yourself, or someone like yourself, and say to them, with pure, honest words,
None of what happened was your fault.
Now, Atoli's epitaph is the Mirage of Deceit, tying into an ability to lie to yourself and others, submerge yourself in an illusion that you are different than what you really are, or disguising your true feelings and whatnot. So she could be just saying that because that's what she thinks Mello needs to hear.
What makes me not think such is that was getting her nowhere at all. It was one of the pieces keeping her in her cycle of misery. So why the hell would she say that and not mean it? Especially when for so long she's treated the world as a place she would rather be than the real world.
I do think she was being honest, realizing, possibly even after she said it, that those words do apply to her as well. So, just as she was told and reassured before, she need not shoulder the blame.
And this was perfectly placed, having given time for the incident to settle, then allowing resolution from the key character's perspective so she can, as I have said, move and grow beyond the her that let her role in that happen. The quest wraps up in Canard, the Axe having earned credit from the turdball that is Death Grunty. But with having gotten them the high-rank guild perks for everyone, Syllabus and Gaspard resolve to do everything they can to make it more than worth the effort Haseo's given to claim it.
And I think that's when Haseo realizes how deep he's really in.
After all, these guys have been his support team since his level reset.
And that's one of the purposes to that callback. Contrast. The original scene in Rebirth showed how Haseo was at wit's end simply being in the presence of these people. And now, he can't imagine not being around them.
This was brought up last game with his job extension quest as well, but again, in the wake of Moontree, this is where it really hits home how much the two are involved, even while being unaware of Ida. They're more than targets from association, they're his friends.
Atoli, I swear to you, I'm never going to take my eyes off you guys again.
Unfortunately, that makes it all the easier to seek revenge by association, as Pike contacts us with news of Yada's sacking and disappearance.
And the revelation of the man that has succeeded him.
The master of the Serpent of Lore.
Allow me to reintroduce Sakaki, Ida PC, and Chief Administrator of the World. Proliferation of Ida and efforts to save the Lost Ones are now all according to his whims.
Yes, CC Corp allowed themselves to be conned by his words into giving him total command instead of banning his ass. Have I mentioned before that CC Corp are the true villains of .hack?
I can't even imagine how he would have been colloquial enough to do so, as the Sakaki we see from here on out is a raging lunatic.
And I'm not even kidding. Look for yourselves.
Oh, this is rich. Hilarious. Now then, behold. Look well upon your beloved pile of dung. Foolish worm. Spineless idiot. He was nothing but a filthy little insect. How dare he defy me?
It's like he's lost all inhibition. We've seen some of that previously from Ida PCs, but never quite like this. All of theirs had a framework of being drowned in obsession. Or, in Atoli's case, self-loathing.
While it's possible Ida's ramping up his megalomania and sociopathic tendencies to their heights to bring this about, it's certainly a stark contrast between the abuser and the abused. He explains the nature of his contract. CC Corp has given up trying to rid the system of Ida.
Very stupid, since Yada was in the final stages of analyzing the true scale of the threat, which, as the last game alluded, would have been able to allow quick elimination like with the tail end of the Cursed Wave, which, as you will remember, CC Corp also tried to screw Kite and company over on.
And have decided that they will settle for coexistence as long as the game runs smoothly. Meaning, no, Lost Ones will not be saved. That would require Ida's extermination, and Ida is the only thing that keeps Sakaki in power. The entire world and its inhabitants are now his playthings.
Haseo! Pledge allegiance to me. Go out and work in my name!
And they will have none of it, turning from him without a second glance.
Well, it's just as I predicted. But never forget that my eyes will always be shining on you. The Serpent of Lore is in my hands.
And now we have an idea of the end game of this conflict. To get to Ovan, Haseo and company need to get past the monster born, not of Ida's wish to understand, but of twisted, selfish ambition. Sakaki is the villain because even after his plans had been thwarted, he comes back seeking revenge, and more outlandish ways to achieve his ends.
To CC Corp's credit on this, they're pretty much being blackmailed. Pai confirms everything in a later email, part of the con being that Sakaki has dominion over Ida on a far more widespread level than normal Ida PCs, and will hold back on infection if he's in charge. But if that position is threatened from within and without, there would be no reason to not pull another Ida server stunt, one of a longer-lasting nature that'd leave all the players brain dead.
So while they certainly performed a knee-jerk reaction in doing what they did to Yada before running this by the second most knowledgeable man on the subject, it's on more of an understandable level than their previous jerkassery, which would have killed a hell of a lot of people. Granted, this puts more people in outright blatant danger in the end, and would lead to the ruining of their business, but that's hindsight for you.
Next time we'll get into more of the game proper, beginning with starting over on the side quests.
This is going to be a long one, folks.